very excited to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I am just going to, I really think I'm going to make my 15-minute timeline and not go over because I'm going to talk very quickly. But I have to tell you, I've been living in mortal fear, Joe, of how you were going to introduce me today. Yes, I have been. After you introduced Rob Packard yesterday as your very large friend, I was lying awake last night thinking, oh dear.
Yeah, you know,
what are the
every once in a while I don't, the words just come out. But I mean, you have to admit with Rob. I mean,
yes. But then I was trying to think, okay, what is it exactly about me that he could, anyway. I survived that. I'm here, and it's okay. But as you all know, there's lots of things going on in the health economics and reimbursement space that affect medical devices. And so I am going to talk very quickly through a bunch of the key points, and then talk about, once we've sort of introduced the influencers, introduce a few tactics and how you can deal with those. But first, I want to introduce you to a technology that I think is going to be coming soon to a hospital near you. It's one that's quite exciting. So as we will see, let's just hook directly up to the ATM. I like cartoons. I don't normally put cartoons in my presentations because you're not quite sure if people are going to respond well to them. But I figure when Joe puts up meatballs and Glengarry Glen Ross as video clips, I figure I can do pretty much what I want. So we will move into the big topics. Affordable Care Act obviously is something huge that is impacting what's happening in terms of the way medical devices are adopted and reimbursed. And here we just have a bunch of headlines. So I'll tell you that yesterday I asked my assistant to pull together these headlines on 5 different topics. It lets you know how frequently this is in the news that it took her about 5 minutes to put all 5 of the slides together that you're going to see like this. So it's lots of headlines, lots of pressure on providers and payers, lots of things that are happening, puts both pressures on medical device manufacturers, but it also gives manufacturers opportunities that we're going to talk about as well. Here's another one. First you must see Dr. Ta, and then you must see Dr. Ra-Ra, and then you can see Dr. Boomtier. So this leads into somewhat into the triple aim of healthcare, and a little into the next slide, which we'll talk about accountable care organizations. So does everybody know, I'm sure you do, the triple aim of healthcare? Yes. So what's number 1? Improve outcomes, population-wide. So that's a big point. What's another one? Improve the patient experience of care. And then what's the third one? Costs, lower per capita costs of care. So again, this is tied in with the accountable care organizations. It's also tied in with the Affordable Care Act. The triple aim are the metrics that we're all trying to hit, or that our healthcare system is trying to hit. Another one. I'm sorry. I like cartoons, as I said, and I keep sort of a bank of them, and I don't get to use them very often, so I don't know if you can read this very well. There will be a bit of a wait while we figure out a market solution to your problem. So this is somebody coming to the emergency room. So again, ACOs and value-based purchasing arrangements and value-based reimbursement arrangements, those things are obviously changing healthcare significantly. We're not all the way there yet. We're not going to be all the way there for a long time. Accountable care organizations, as they say, if you've seen one ACO, you've seen one ACO, because they all come different variations. There's payer-provider variations. There's some that don't involve payers. There's just a million different ways that they talk about the finances, but they all are trying to, again, improve population health. They're trying to lower costs of care, and they're trying to improve the patient experience of care. So all the triple aim. Okay, so again, sorry, every other one. And in our continuing effort to minimize surgical costs, I'll be hitting you over the head and tearing you open with my bare hands. We all hope we're not really coming to that. But it doesn't lead very nicely. It was just a nice cartoon. Into precision and personalized medicine. Again, this is a big topic. Obama started the Precision Care Initiative. or the Precision Medicine Initiative, I should say. And I think all of us see the possibilities there for, again, improving patient health, lowering costs. But again, we're not quite there yet. A lot of payers don't really know what to do with companion diagnostics. It's just a little bit of uncertainty about how exactly that's going to play out, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second as well. I may have one more cartoon, and then I think I'm done. So Let's Catch a Wellness Wave is leading us into our mobile medical applications. And again, we've all been talking about this quite a bit over the past couple of days, that mobile medical apps are really transforming the way we receive medical care. They're transforming the way providers provide care. They're transforming the ways payers pay for care. That's just going to continue. We've done a lot of work with mobile medical apps from a health economics and a reimbursement perspective, but really I think every manufacturer in this room needs to pay attention to mobile medical apps, whether you think you're ever going to be an MMA developer or not. We see with our clients, a lot of companies who are pairing their therapeutic with an app to increase the value of their therapeutic, even if they're entirely different things. So you may have a medication that's tied to an app that tracks how you're doing, helps you be more adherent with your medication, helps you follow other aspects of your health. And also they're being used in clinical studies. So to lower the cost of your clinical studies for your technologies, they're being used in that way to increase efficiencies in your manufacturing plants. It's just really transforming the way we do business and hoping to change the way our return on investment. So that's another very important and transformative aspect of healthcare today. So I'm going to stop here and take a little more time. I kind of blasted through those as well, and Joe will let me know when I start to go too long. But so the key takeaways for manufacturers and the key takeaways for my clients that I work with every day is, first of all, value analysis for fee-for-service environment or a pay-for-performance environment. So what do you do in today's environment? You do both. So we work with our manufacturers and tell them, look, some payers and some have formed these accountable care organizations. Some hospitals are a part of the accountable care organizations. Some of them are moving fully to the value-based reimbursement space, and they need that holistic approach of looking at that value proposition from that perspective. The best thing about that perspective, really, from a manufacturer's perspective, from you trying to create the evidence to support your value proposition, is that it aligns the perspectives of the different stakeholders. So within an ACO, the physician and the payer are all working towards the same thing. They're really all trying to provide better care at a lower cost, and their incentives are aligned. Versus in a fee-for-service environment, traditionally you may go to a provider who has an in-office diagnostic, for instance, and you may want to tell them how much more money they can make if they use your diagnostic within their office setting. That doesn't align with the payer's perspective. They're not real excited if the provider says, oh, wow, great, I can make $50 every time I use this in my office, and the payer is the one having to pay for it. So in that kind of an environment, you really have a bunch of different value propositions. So you're creating a value proposition for the provider. You're telling him or her why they want to use that technology. You have a different one for the payer, telling the payer why they won't overuse it, despite the fact that you have this other value proposition. So those things just aren't aligned at all. And I actually have an example from a company that I've worked with for a number of years now. They had a really, really good point of care diagnostic in asthma. Inexpensive, like $20 to pay for the asthma kit. And they were so convinced that they would go out to the payer community and the payers would be all kinds of excited about this because it's only $20. And I said to them, no, because what the payer sees, and Nick's gonna nod his head at me, I know, is they see their gajillion patients who have asthma and they see 20 times a gajillion is 20 gajillion, and they're not real excited about that possibility. So in that case, what they needed to do is to, reassure the payers, is to say, look, we know we don't have a lot of evidence in actual use, but we know 15% of your asthmatics cost you a lot. It's 85% of your spend on asthma patients. So let's try it out in that patient population, and let's show you how we can save you money in that population. And so now they're doing that now, after they went out and did the other thing and didn't get utilized. That's the approach that they've taken, and they're now doing quite well, and they're making encroachments in the various markets. So anyway, the bottom line here is we are transferring from fee-for-service to some version of pay-for-performance, whether you call it value-based reimbursement, whether you call it capitated payment. However it's set up, we are moving to that, but it's going to be a long time before we're completely there. So in the meantime, you really do have to be thinking about how you're going to present your value proposition in both of those environments. The second main point up there is focus your value proposition on pain points. We heard this addressed a couple of times yesterday as well. So what are the pain points that hospitals are experiencing now? Well, because of the Affordable Care Act, they're being penalized if they have hospital-acquired infections, so that financially they're being penalized. They're being penalized if a patient is discharged from the hospital and then readmitted within 30 days. So if you have technologies that help them to improve their performance in those areas, that's a point that you want to deliver in your value proposition. So it's just an example of ways to think about how your technology impacts the pain points that your providers or your payers are experiencing. And again, improving the patient experience of care is part of the triple aim. So if we think about ways in which we can provide minimally invasive or non-invasive technologies and procedures, those are things that will certainly improve the patient experience of care. Also, moving patients to the home environment, as we just talked about a little bit ago, is a way to improve the patient experience of care. Precision medicine, payers are skeptical. So why do I say that payers are skeptical? Any thoughts about that? Well, diagnostics, why do I think you're skeptical? Okay, good. Thank you. But it's diagnostics, any of you who are diagnostic manufacturers, diagnostics are tough in general. And if we talk about companion diagnostics, those are tough. And why are those tough? Because what payers want to see is they don't just want to see with a diagnostic that the sensitivity and the specificity are good or that the accuracy is good. They want to see that it actually changes the way that patient is cared for. They want to see that it changes physicians' behavior. They want to see that it improves outcomes long term, or it improves costs long term. So for instance, if there's an indication that doesn't really have a good treatment, diagnosing it from the payer perspective doesn't do any good. And so to them, you find you have a problem, but there's no solution. I just paid money to find I have a problem that I have no solution for. That's not a good deal for them. The other reason is that in precision medicine, if you think about the manufacturers of the therapies, you've reduced their market with precision medicine. So if you're saying now we're not going to prescribe it to everybody, we're going to prescribe it to people who meet these specific requirements, you've reduced the size of their market. What do they do with the price of their technology? They increase it. So how much money do they save? So anyway, these are things that I think we agree that we're going to be moving in this direction. It's just not as easy selling in the marketplace as we might think it should be anyway. So last slide. Traditional reimbursement pathways still exist, but new ones are being created. And so this is what I find really fun about my job, and I have a warped view of fun because I'm a mathematician, and so I like solving equations. I think that's fun too. But one of the really exciting things about the environment right now is everybody's in chaos. So payers, right, don't really know what to do in this new environment, or they're just figuring it out. Providers don't really know what to do, they're just figuring it out. But they all know that they need to somehow improve outcomes, they need to somehow improve costs. And so if you can help them do that, you can kind of be creative. And they'll work with you to do demonstrations and to help you gather the data that you need. So it's a really great time to go and propose something to payers. And I know that they can't run a pilot study for every single brand new technology, but they are running a lot of pilot studies. So that's very exciting right now. Think of your payers as your partners and not as the enemy. They're not the enemy, they're your customers. Sometimes they're your very best customers, or they could be your very best customers, so give them what they want. And again, it's a good environment to be in because you can kind of help them determine what they want to see, and you can work on that together, which is a great thing. And then mobile medical apps. We talked about this a little bit. Thing to be cautious about with mobile medical apps is that patients always like them, right? We like the gadgets, we like the stuff. I say all the time, I was a math professor for a couple of years, right after I got my PhD, and I am so glad that we didn't have all this technology when I was a math professor, because it was bad enough teaching 18-year-olds calculus at 8 in the morning every day without the little tools for them to distract them. So we all like our gadgets. And I don't have a Fitbit, but most of my friends have Fitbits or Jawbones or whatever. Most of them ignore them, so I have a friend who has a blood clotting disorder where she really needs to get up and move around and walk around for her health. She has an app that tells her she needs to stand up and get up and move around. She ignores it, but she likes it. She likes the app. So anyway, even if it doesn't do anything for us, we like it. But that doesn't mean providers are going to like them, and it really doesn't mean payers are going to like them, because payers don't want to pay for something that you ignore. But payers do want to use mobile applications and pay for them for their patients, and they do if it can really help patients with their chronic medical conditions. And some of them have proven that and are being used very successfully in the marketplace. So that's all I have, but lots of stuff going on in the space. And again, it's a fun environment to be in right now. I really encourage you all to not think of it as a terrifying environment, but to really see the opportunities.
Thank you, Beth.